As public condemnation mounts against China's dangerous and intimidating actions at Scarborough Shoal and at Philippine-controlled Thitu Island, Ferdinand Jr. says his country will never be a part of escalation in the South China or West Philippine Sea. Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm EP519. Joining us today are Liu Fu-kuo, National Chengchi University Institute of International Relations Research Fellow, and Wen-ti Sung, Atlantic Council Global China Hub Non-Resident Fellow. A very warm welcome to both of you on the show today.
Thank you. Yeah.
An unidentified Chinese vessel struck a Philippine fisheries boat with a high-intensity laser 6 times on December 2nd, about 60 nautical miles off Palawan, while it was en route to Thitu or Pagasa Island, causing injury to the crew. And earlier, on November 26th, this satellite photo was also taken of Thitu Island. Sea Light Director Ray Powell wrote on X, "This is, quote, by far the largest PRC vessel swarm I've ever seen off Thitu Island, counting between 73 and 75 ships around the island. The closest ships were more than 2 nautical miles away from Pagasa Island, now with the vast majority of them Chinese-registered fishing vessels. For the Philippines, Thitu Island is the centre of Manila's comprehensive archipelagic defence concept strategy. Among the most critical projects is the expansion of the airstrip. On the island, the planned extension of the airstrip is 1.5 kilometres and will allow larger aircraft such as C-130 cargo planes. This footage was actually taken from a C-130 plane to land essential goods and supplies to the remote outpost. Lawmakers have earmarked around $55.8 million for the project and the construction of a shelter port on Lawak Island, 150 kilometres to the east. Wen-ti, let me come to you first. So a military-grade laser pointed at a government vessel, not a military vessel, 6 times. Does that seem a little overkill to you?
It certainly seems unnecessary, but again, this is just part and parcel of the typical pattern we've come to expect from China, really. We know that for China, for the longest time, nationalism through expansionism, nationalism through this kind of tough guy posturing against foreigners seems to be the go-to item in China's toolbox when it comes to find ways to divert attention away from domestic issues, when it comes to ways to find and create more legitimacy for the government rule. So this kind of provocation is something we've come to expect, and really at a time when China's economy doesn't seem to be so well, Beijing doesn't quite have this other alternative source of legitimacy, that is economic performance, which means that it will rely ever more on nationalism. So which is why I think while this kind of incident is definitely something that international community would rather not like to see, there are reasons to expect that it will continue, if not go further in the future.
Professor Liu, why do you think that China appears to be targeting this particular island with, the swarms of vessels? Is this simply, perhaps, to do with nationalism, or is it more targeted? Do they want to take this island? Do they want to coerce, intimidate the Philippines?
Basically, looking back what Chinese have been doing in the South China Sea, I can come up with 2 specific points. Number 1 point is China basically looking into the Philippines. They have taken more responsive actions in the past. So now the Philippine government is trying to strengthen the strategic outpost in the Thitu Island, which is in our name Zhongyedao. And this is critically important. This is the 2nd largest natural form island in the spread to the island. Since the Philippine government is trying to build more strategic and military facilities on the island, so Chinese government consider it would be better to trying to block and trying to get rid of such a forthcoming challenge to China. The second point I want to also highlight, looking into the behavior Chinese either Coast Guard or People Liberation Army Navy, they consider this is a part of Chinese territory. Currently, this is under dispute. So the Philippines occupies this since 1971, when Republic of China, Taiwan, we remove our military for the typhoon purpose. The Philippines occupies this island since then on. So from a political angle, this is what China takes. Chinese always consider this as a part of territory inside the 9-dash line, which they want to guard against. As long as the Philippines does not push further, they will not really perhaps escalate such a tension surrounding the island there.
Right, right. And of course, we have to say that the 9-dash line is China's historical claim. It was thrown out by the 2016 arbitral ruling as being illegal. Professor mentioned the upgrades to Thitu Island that the Philippines is taking out. We have to compare that to the 27 fully militarized bases that China has built in the South China Sea. Obviously, the very closest one to Thitu is Subi Reef, which is a fully militarized Chinese-controlled reef. Professor, I'd like to ask you, from the Chinese perspective, are they carrying out what we know as the Chinese cabbage strategy? So this is sort of the concentric circles or layers where you have maritime militia. So this is the fishing boats, which actually don't do fishing, the Navy, the Coast Guard, and the Navy. And it's a strategy that we understand is to kind of overwhelm a feature in order to seize control.
Yes, definitely. Looking from Western countries and also the country in the region, this is exactly China deployed in the region with multiple layers of defense, as they called it. You describe it differently. So Chinese government, as I observe, they have been very carefully manipulating all the forces they can utilize in the South China Sea, engaging with such things, just conducting the conventional law enforcement activity, not really getting involved in military confrontation. So that is a reason why maritime militia, together with Coast Guard, normally take the first line of what they call defense in the South China Sea, trying to conduct this law enforcement. Of course, blocking the resupplies from the Philippines to the Thitu Island, as well as to other reef and islands. So this is the main purpose. From Chinese perspective, this is a part of law enforcement and also importantly protecting the sovereignty.
Oh, China's sovereignty. Let's move now to Scarborough Shoal. So on December 4th, 4 Chinese Coast Guard vessels and 2 Chinese Navy ships surrounded a Philippine Fisheries Bureau ship as it was delivering supplies to fishermen working on Scarborough Shoal. 2 Chinese Coast Guard vessels took turns to fire high-pressure water cannon, which Manila says was aimed at the Philippine vessel's navigational antennae. China claims that it was only, quote, exercising control based on normal law enforcement, as Professor mentioned. Meanwhile, 2 Chinese Navy ships and Coast Guard vessels blocked Philippine Coast Guard ships using dangerous maneuvers. So, Wen-ti, let me come to you. It's interesting because, law enforcement activities, as we've just discussed, don't involve military, and yet you do have Navy ships getting involved here. And this is, I guess, why we call it grey zone. Here, there was the water cannon that was by Coast Guard ships. We heard at Thitu Island that there were the military-grade laser. We don't know what kind of vessel actually struck using the laser. But how far is this away from normal law enforcement standards?
It's very murky territory, of course, in international law, especially with the way that China leverages its Coast Guard. The Coast Guard sounds civilian, sounds law enforcement-y, but China's Coast Guard, however, is directly controlled by, under the command of the Central Military Commission, which is to say the Chinese military, which give it this weird identity where it's under dual leadership, one civilian leadership, one's under military leadership. So that gives it a very peculiar status. That also, I think, is one reason why we're seeing more and more instances of China using Coast Guards as a way to push for its what it seems to be its sovereignty claims, including these kind of clashes with Philippines and other countries that we're seeing, because they give it both military-grade assets and capability, almost, but also with the additional civilian, more innocent, innocuous-looking cover next to it that enables China to both exercise coercion, but still have enough of a off-ramp that's flexible, ready to be deployed should I want to.
Right, okay. And Professor Liu, why is Scarborough Shoal in particular important to China? We know that in November it set out the territorial sea around Scarborough Shoal. It also made a submission to the UN talking about the baselines around Scarborough Shoal.
For the last decade also, we recognize in the South China Sea, Chinese government has already built 3 strategic outposts. To the west, it is Yongxingdao in the paracel Xisha Island. To the south is Fiery Cross, and also to the east, exactly Scarborough Shoal. But this one, basically looking into geographic context, potentially coral reef, the land base is huge. So Chinese government hasn't really conducted land reclamation on the Scarborough Shoal. But I think if the Philippines push too hard, I can imagine Chinese government will respond with such a quick and determined action to conduct land reclamation, to build this overwhelmed strategic outpost in the South China Sea. So basically, this is strategically so important, and the location is not far away from Luzon Island.
Right, so you could understand that it's strategic for the Philippines being so close,
yes.
But for China, you're saying equally, there's the same reason, because it's close to the Philippines.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And why are these 3 in particular strategic for China?
For now, looking into the coral reef base, these 3 islands are large enough. 2 of them already being built with airstrip, and the runway is much extended. They can land all kinds of aircraft on the Fiery Cross as well as Woody Island. And this Scarborough Shoal, basically looking into this particular coral reef feature, large enough, and also will reach biodiversity resources surrounding the island.
Okay, so for the military potential as well as for the maybe natural resources.
Yes.
Okay, and Wen-ti, should something like that occur, where China starts to reclaim this island and eventually, or to start to militarize it, what do you think would happen in today's climate? Because, we talked about the 27 that it currently has, but these have been sort of gradual, whilst perhaps the US and other claimants weren't noticing that this was actually quietly happening. So if this was to happen today, what do you think the reaction would be?
It's not going to play to China's advantage, I don't think. This is, of course, yes, those islands that Professor Liu mentioned are important to both Philippines and China, but also the islands that are closer to Philippines itself, which is to say that for Philippines, it's almost a necessity for its own self-defense, whereas for China, it feels like more of an optional extra in terms of security of China's capital, China's homeland, and so forth.
It could also be seen as quite aggressive, given the proximity to...
Yes, very different utility function, let's put it that way, between China and Philippines. Also, we are looking at a time when the world is undergoing power transition on the US side, especially with a new presidency coming in, that for many other countries and partners around the world who are watching it, they are thinking about the possibility of maybe some kind of reshuffling going on in terms of where they should stand in the US-China bipolar rivalry. So at moments like this, it's actually relatively open field for China when it comes to winning friends and influencing people, if you will, to borrow that old line. So for China to be acting too overly aggressive at this point will be China wasting a major window of opportunity for itself to fashion a more friendly image at the time when it'll be most cost-effective for China.
Yeah, because it would be a significant and a clear departure from the status quo, should they upgrade.
Rocking the boat would generally be frowned upon by countries.
Okay. Now, on the same day as the Scarborough incident, the Philippines filed a diplomatic protest against China. It was the 60th démarche that Manila has made to Beijing in 2024 and the 193rd since President Marcos Jr. took office in 2022. Here's the president when asked by media how Manila would respond to the Scarborough incident.
Presence of Chinese Navy warships in our exclusive economic zone. How are we going to respond, sir?
We are going to continue to perform our mission. We will never be part of an escalation in the situation in the West Philippine Sea. If we look at the evolution of the situation in the West Philippine Sea, the Philippines has never been an agent of escalation.
Professor Liu, if I can ask you, so diplomatic protests, the Philippines still putting them in, but it doesn't seem to, obviously, change the behaviour of China, as you mentioned, that they see it as protecting their own sovereign interests. So are they worth the paper that they're written on?
Because even if we are looking into this blaming game from both sides, but putting into a official record, this is all the more important. And as you described, more than 100 protests fired by the Marcos Jr. Government to China. And this is something diplomatically quite important. After all, maybe some years later, they will proceed this case to legal procedural jurisdiction, either ICJ, International Court of Justice, or another arbitration case. It reminds us in Taiwan, our government would have to consistently watch, monitoring what happened in the South China Sea. After all, we are the original claimants, 11-9. Our policy has not been changed. So whenever China, the Philippines engage in such a dispute, our government would definitely have to come up with something reminding the Philippines as well as China they should try to resort to peaceful means rather than just entangle with each other, messing up in the area which also belongs to Taiwan.
So you're saying that Taiwan should have some sort of diplomatic communication as well to ask both sides to peacefully resolve this issue?
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly.
Wen-ti, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, yeah, like Professor Liu said, I think paper trail management matters in the longer term. You're upholding what you see as a right for international norms and what's acceptable behavior in the area. It's in those ways that you are building out your case for a longer term, if not policy victory, then at least a moral victory, which are, again, essential for building international support.
Talking about moral victory, what do you make of the contrast that Marcos is making between himself, the Philippines, and China when he says the Philippines does not escalate?
Yeah, I think that's Philippines' general posture toward managing the situation. Even in the more recent Second Thomas Shoal incident, for example, between China and the Philippines, we're seeing Philippines at least, even when Chinese behavior might arguably warrant the triggering of U.S.-Philippines mutual defense obligation, you see Philippines trying to not go there, still trying to find a diplomatic way to work out a modus vivendi interim agreement.
Which they did at the Second Thomas Shoal. The resupply agreement appeared to be a diplomatic win. Professor Liu, why do you think that was able to be reached, an agreement at Second Thomas Shoal, and then as a result we seem to see the clashes spread to all these different islands and shoals? Why cannot an agreement be struck on those other islands?
Early this year, the main controversial point was Second Thomas Shoal. Later on in this year, sometime in May, gradually shift to Sabina Shoal. And it was because there was rusted ships on the Second Thomas Shoal, which the Philippines utilized this way to claim they own this shoal. But
it's also within their exclusive economic zone.
Yes, yes. But there is a controversy between the historic claim and also the current UN Convention on the Law of Sea, overlapping. And this is a disputed water area. So looking from the Philippines, they insist this is under the regulation of UNCLOS. But from China, from Taiwan, we have a much longer time claim, which is a historic claim. Of course, this historic claim has been rejected in the arbitration case tribunal, date back to 2016. But basically, as you asked this very important question, why this issue is gradually shifting to other shelf and reefs?
Yeah, or perhaps it's the inverse. Why could there be an agreement struck on Second Thomas Shoal?
Because Second Thomas Shoal, the issue was there already for more than 20-some years. So after all this controversy, they came with this perhaps a compromise early this year. And then under such a condition, the Philippines can resupply to the ships and also give some commodity without including construction materials. But of course, this is a controversy between Beijing and Manila for now. But the important thing is Chinese government already look into the real intention behind Manila when they moved to Scarborough Shoal, moved to others, lately another smaller reef, which is called the Iroquois Reef. And gradually the focus is shifting because the real intention now is different from the earlier time. Now the Philippines is trying to strengthen their ownership within the maritime zone they just claim.
Right. On December 6, days after the Scarborough Shoal incident, the Philippines, the US and Japan held their 5th joint maritime exercises within the West Philippine Sea, the part of the South China Sea that lies within Manila's exclusive zone. Participating in the drills was the Philippine Navy's BRP Andres Bonifacio and a C-90 aircraft, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Forces Murasame-class destroyer JS Sameda, and the US Navy's P-8A Poseidon. Following that, on December 10th, the three nations held their first maritime dialogue, a result of the trilateral summit held in April this year when Joe Biden, Kishida Fumio and Ferdinand Marcos Jr. met in Washington, D.C. So, Wen-ti, let me come to you. How significant is the maritime dialogue, which is something that's new, coming on top of basically the 5th joint drills between these three nations?
This goes to show how there's ever more awareness among allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific region about need to work together to dissuade and to, I guess, shape more productive behavior in the region for the stability of everybody else. I think we're seeing signs of this, of course, in greater trilateral negotiation and coordination between Japan, Philippines, and US. We're seeing also our friends actually stepping out as well. For Japan, for example, they just made another round of security assistance to the Philippines for major boats, for radar system. These are kind of stuff that does improve Philippines' capacity for maritime surveillance, but also you do it in a way that doesn't directly make China feel provoked as well. So I think this is about them finding the right balance in a way that may provide a foundation for building an ever greater multilateral maritime joint domain awareness coordination capacity for countries beyond just these three.
Mm-hmm. Professor Liu, I do believe, though, that China was provoked by the drills and probably by the maritime dialogue as well.
Right. Looking into this trilateral, currently just looking into their domestic politics, I am really concerning with the potential effectiveness of this trilateral because Joe Biden is stepping down. Donald Trump may not be as concerned as Joe Biden with this South China Sea issue.
But he may be even more concerned.
Yes.
We don't know.
Looking into the track record, he is not really cared about this. And also looking into Prime Minister Kishida already stepping down. And now this weakest Prime Minister in Japan. And also Marcos Jr. is plunging into domestic fight against the second largest family there. So this is a question mark I will be looking into the next few months. But responding to the question why Japan is so concerning with this, I can sense 3 quick points. Number one, to show Japan is strongly supporting the United States. The second point is airlines' commitment to regional partners. The third one is even more important, safety of sea-land of communication for Japan. Likewise, Taiwan, the Philippines guard against this sea-land of communication, which Japan consider as their lifeline.
And we should probably also mention the fact that it is the Philippines and Japan are part of the first island chain, and also this appears to be connecting 2 US mutual defense treaties, the one with Japan and the one with the Philippines. We've run out of time, so I just now need to thank my guests, Liu Fu-kuo and Wen-ti Sung, for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe. See you next time.
There's so many things that I wish the world could see.
It is amazing to watch this captain maneuver this giant ship.
It takes 3 days to cook this. The flavor is unbelievable, incredible.
And it's my turn to make something inspired by Chef Guo. It's going to be quite a challenge.
Can you imagine that?
It's surreal, yes, so real.
I can't give up. I got some ass kicking to do.
Nice move.
We're pushing each other to explore and experiment in new, different ways.
5, 4, 3, 2.
A warm welcome to Taiwan Plus News.
Exploring the issues that matter to you.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
很多时候是我们眼睛看不到的地方。
We might encounter mishaps and mistakes along the way. But at the end of the day,
It just transmits something straight from the heart. Yes.
Cheers.
Bon appetit. It is about the fun and it's about the glamour and it's also about something much deeper than that.
Sometimes you just gotta seize the opportunity. You just gotta do it.
Have a place where you're appreciated for you exactly as you are and where you can shine and be seen.